less than 10% of disease is actually connected to a defect in the protein mechanisms in our body. And actually, many people believe less than 1% of disease is due to defective proteins. So, for example, let's say proteins are responsible for 10% of disease, then we're left with what is responsible for the remaining 90% of disease? Well, there's only one thing left in the equation, and that is the signal. And I say, well, how can a signal create a disease? And I say, well, if you alter or distort the signal between the nervous system and the target cells and proteins in those cells, then you're going to interfere with the behavior of that cell. So I said, well, what can alter a signal? Well, number one, trauma. If I, let's say, fall down and wrench my back, what will that do? Well, it will cause an interference on the information traveling from my nervous system to my body. That interference will alter the signal, and so trauma can be a cause of a disease. In addition to trauma, toxins in the system can interfere with the signaling process and cause the disease, because toxins in the system can distort the signal between the source in the nervous system and the target cells where that signal is destined to go. However, the biggest single issue in causing a disease is not trauma or toxins, it is thought. And thought, what does that mean? Well, what if I misinterpret the environment and send an inappropriate signal to my body to adjust it to my misinterpretation? Well, now the body will be out of harmony with the environment. That is the primary cause of a disease, where our consciousness is misinterpreting environmental signals and as a result engaging inappropriate behavior. So I look at these three sources of disease: trauma, toxin, and thought. And guess what they represent? Well, trauma represents a physical stress. Toxin represents a chemical stress. And thought is an emotional stress when it's incorrect. So all of a sudden, I start to recognize the important part, that it is these stresses that are responsible for the health issues that we face in this world. In fact, the American Psychological Association has recognized that up to 90% of all doctor visits are for stress-related ailments. Now, there are two kinds of stress that we have to consider here. One type of stress is called eustress. The other type of stress is called distress. What's the difference? Well, eustress is good stress. You go, stress that's good? What could that be? And the answer is this: if you're exercising, playing a sport, you're pushing on the system to perform. And this effort actually causes a stress on the system. Because as you are pushing on the system in playing a sport or exercising, you're actually causing the system to build up its strength. And so this kind of stress enhances the health of the body and the strength of the system. So eustress, sports, hiking, swimming, whatever it may be, is a good stress. The problems come from distress. And distress, what does it represent? Well, it represents any interference that gets in the way of pursuing your destination, pursuing your wishes and desires. Anything that interferes with that destination or that desire can be cataloged as being a stress. And therefore, distress turns out to be the problem in the system.